Hello YouTube, it's Accurate again, and two things here before this video really starts. We're gonna talk to another beat maker who makes a lot of beats on Machine, and he just picked up one of these ones, the MPC Key 37, and he wanted me to go through some of the functionality of it. So it's not a complete beginner's tutorial, but still really valuable stuff for someone who wants to get into this ecosystem. That's the first thing. The second thing is that I'm bringing back my beat reviews again, which is this vague concept of mine where I'm trying to share my platform a little bit. So you're more than welcome to send your music my way. It doesn't have to be beats in my kind of style, it could be whatever, as long as you've made it yourself. Send music my way to accuratebeatreview@gmail.com, and I'm gonna include it in live streams. Listen to it, maybe talk a little bit about them, and we're all gonna be able to be there and participate and whatever. Let's jump into this conversation with Al. Yeah, here we are with Al, and I know Al from the Beatcast. He has had me on as a guest for a couple of shows, and here he is, an awesome beat maker, and he's pretty much new to the MPC coming from the Machine MK3 and Machine Plus as well. Who are you, Al? Just tell us a little bit of who you are.
I am longtime hip hop fan and participator. I'm a hip hop enjoyer from many moons ago. A little bit of background, like I am new to this MPC, but I got my start many years ago on the 2000 XL, and then I dabbled in the MPC One. Remember the blue one with the little red sides, like that guy?
Oh yeah, of course.
And then a lot of people love that one. And then I got into the 4000, loved the 4000. And but shortly thereafter, I got into the Native Instrument series, starting with the 1, I got the 2, and so on. Now I'm on the 3, and I picked up the Standalone. But when I actually saw your videos, like I was seeing your lives and things like this, and of course we know each other from doing the Beatcast and stuff, and you just make this look so fun. Plus, I saw some of their promo materials where they had some of the producers working on it, and I'm like, stem. Like one of the biggest sales with this thing to me is just being able to stem out samples. And anyways, it just looks like fun to use. But that was the thing, right? Diving into it, it got a little bit interesting with the update from the 2 to the 3.
Yeah. And you wrote me on Instagram and asked for some questions or whatever, and I figured let's make this into a video. But you were at that point like a day or two in with the MPC Live, the MPC Key 37, and you were using it in controller mode, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And I pretty much told you not to.
Yeah. You're like, what are you doing, man? No more monkey business. So.
Yeah. Because there is a big difference between MPC2 and MPC3, and MPC3 is not available for the computer side of the software. It's just for the standalone so far. And to me, if you are getting a new MPC now, it's better to just adapt and commit to the new firmware instead of sticking with 2. And I mean, the big downside of that is, of course, that you're not going to get third-party plugins at all.
Right.
You're stuck with the MPC for what it is, for better or worse. So I'm not going to come in here and explain a lot of stuff, but this just needs to be pointed out. Running an MPC in controller mode is a perfectly fine way of using it. And if you're going to do a lot of stem separation, it's probably better to do it in controller mode and let the computer handle everything, because the stems you're getting out of the computer software are a lot better than the stems you're getting out of the standalone version. That's just what it is. But as I'm shooting this right now, and when we had our conversation, this beta version of the MPC3 software isn't available for the computer whatsoever. It's just for the standalone so far. So my recommendation is to start working on the new firmware because it's different from the old one. And whenever it catches up on the computer, sure, get back to using controller mode if that's what you want. But still, MPC3 is going to be the new thing. So, why spend the time to learn MPC2? Because that's not going to be a thing in the future. I don't know. That's my recommendation, and I stand by it. And you are open to make the switch, right?
100%. And you're right, because diving back into the MPC ecosystem was a bit of like, I was jogging my memory, getting back into programs, and it's a little bit different, of course, than the way that Native Instruments does it.
Yeah, of course.
And I use Native Instruments predominantly in controller mode. Even with the MK3 Plus, I'm producing most of my stuff in controller mode. And you couldn't have been more right, because just the night and a half that I spent relearning MPC as MPC 2 and then jumping into 3 is night and day difference, of course. But
yeah,
that's the thing. It kind of reminds me, the arranger reminds me of the arranger from Native Instruments, but it doesn't operate the same way in any way, shape, or form that I've noticed. But that's sort of where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, they look kind of similar, and they have similar functionality to them. But the difference, I mean, working with a touchscreen on the MPC, of course, it's going to be a huge difference. And if you just spend a couple of days, 1.5 or whatever, with the older firmware, I would just say, just forget about all that and just get into the new stuff, because that's where it's at. Yeah, so that's basically what we're going to talk about today, like the differences and how to get into the MPC Key 37 and the MPC 3 software as a somewhat new user to the ecosystem. But a little bit of love for you. You are an awesome producer, and the Beatcast show that you're hosting is incredible, and I've been, privileged enough to be a guest 2 times, I think.
Yeah,
Give us all the links, all the shout outs that you want.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. The Beatcast is a project I've been doing for the last 4, coming up on 5 years. We're going into our 5th season.
It's that long?
And it's been that long. Yeah, we started during COVID to, kind of stay sane. There's a lot of people were locked inside, and it started with one of my buddy. Long story short, he was sort of doing his own challenge, just picking a record from a certain genre every week and challenging himself to make a beat with it. And he was a working DJ. That's his whole gig, is what he was doing. And he kind of told me, look, man, I'm a fry guy if I don't do my DJ gig. And I'm like, well, let's see if we can turn this challenge you're doing like by yourself, which seems to be really awesome, into something larger. And many years later, we're still going. And there's producers like, that participate from literally all over the world, from every reach that you can think of. We're really privileged to have that engagement. And I think it comes a lot from the fact that the nature of the Beatcast is about finding community. Like, so many people have found each other through doing this project and started projects on their own, and albums and records, and being able to just sort of do what we're doing right now. Just reach out and ask questions, like you get the answers that you need, because we're all in the same boat, and we have a cool cast that does the show with us. There's RTC that jumps on every week, and there's Elena and Mind of Modium, and then Delvon Watson, all great producers in their own right. And it's just a lot of fun to have a little bit of conversation around a beat challenge. We kind of come together and do a podcast and just sort of chop it up. We listen to everyone's beats every week and then just sort of converse. We do it live. But if you guys ever want to check it out, it's thebeatcast.com. Everything's on there. And like you've come on and had some conversations with us, which is, by the way, some of the people, when they saw you come on, were freaking out because they watch your videos. In the beginning, I don't think that they thought that was like a thing. Like, you can just talk to someone and let you watch and have them come on and like engage with them. So.
Of course, I was happy to be there, and I'm looking forward to be invited again, perhaps.
Oh,
I don't know.
100%. Yeah, we have to have you on in season 5. Yeah,
awesome.
1,000%.
It's a great project. It's a great thing, and you have actually managed to build somewhat of a community of like-minded nerds and people, which is really, really cool. Now, diving into the entire business of this, how lost are you?
100% lost.
100%. That's really bad.
Yeah. I sat here for a good, few hours, and it just doesn't. From the point that you load up a new project, right? Yeah. I'm lost.
Yeah. So you haven't been able to take a single step from that point.
No, I mean,
that can't
of course,
be true.
It says dismiss demo page to use. When I click the sounds button, right, or I click menu, it says dismiss demo page. So I say new project. Okay, and it sort of starts from there. The confusion begins.
At the point where you are now, you can click new project, right?
If I click new project, and it loads me up to that page, to the main page where there's like a bunch of sounds. So let's see.
You have this plugin track loaded up, and you have this awful synth that no one really enjoys.
No.
First thing here, let's step into the arrange view just one quick time, just to make sure. I would hold the menu button and hit pad 14.
Okay, I know what you're saying. Yep, I'm in there.
That's the arranger. Now you can see the timeline, basically.
Yeah.
And you can also see two different tracks that are loaded up.
Yeah.
A synth track and
trap kit default, it says.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the first thing I would do is just to take those away. Just delete them. You don't want them. You don't need them. You want control from the beginning. In order to do that, just hold your finger at one of them and you get this little screen pop up.
Got it.
Delete track. Cool.
I can already feel the therapy taking place. Already feeling better.
Yeah, and you should in one way, but what you have right now in front of you,
right?
The tracks on the left-hand side, they are yellow, and those are the bus tracks. We don't want to touch them at all. So click buses button down, bottom left, right. And now we are back to the arranger and nothing is loaded up.
Correct.
Now, let's not touch the arranger mode for a bit. Let's go to main. So at this point, we don't have anything going and we are in full control of everything. Mm-hmm. So the question is just where do we want to start? I would suggest a drum kit, maybe?
Sure.
Yeah. So hit the plus button on the left-hand side.
Gotcha.
These are your tracks. Forget everything that you thought you knew about programs because it's all tracks now. That's either drums, audio, plugin, key group, MIDI, or CV. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
I would go for drums.
Okay.
So now you have a drum track with nothing loaded up at all. It's just blank.
Mm-hmm.
Load up a kit. Load up a drum track, which is load on the upper right corner.
So I go into my one-shots. I know how to audition.
Cool. I
click load and then hit the pad that I want to assign it to.
I think of it the other way around.
Gotcha.
Hitting the pad, selecting load.
Oh, is that how you do it?
Yeah.
I'm just going to load anything for this.
Of course, yeah. Take your time.
I got a kick drum, a snare, and a hi-hat.
That's the base of everything, right?
It is. It really is. It's your meat and potatoes.
Yeah. As long as the samples are good and the vibe and the feeling is there, it's all good.
It'll all work out.
And you're still in the browser, right?
I am in the browser.
Think of this as an old school iPhone. Whenever you hit the home button, it just exits everything and takes you home. In this case, main. The main page is where I do the majority of my work.
Mm-hmm.
First step is just building a loop, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you work with music in more like a linear fashion, that you do everything from start to end?
I am all over the place with that, but a lot of times I'll make my main, section that I guess you would think of as like a verse section, if you will. Yeah.
And you work on that entire loop, and then you're pretty much done, and then you start adding something else on the next part of the arrangement.
Yeah, or subtracting. If I'm like, this is kind of good.
Yeah, and that's something I stumble upon sometimes when people ask me about this stuff, because some people want to work with music in a pure linear fashion, like from start to end. And that's possible with the new arranger too, but it takes a little bit of fiddling around and moving left and right on the timeline itself. And to me, I mean, if we're making beats, we're thinking in loops, most of us, right? So that's where we're going to start this whole thing. Are we talking 2 bars, 4 bars, 8 bars? Yep. How do you mind work about that?
I'm a 4-bar enjoyer. I like a good 4 bars. Yeah.
We are similar that way. That's awesome. That's cool. So if we are on the main page and whatever we record in the main mode or whatever mode ends up on the timeline, that just happens automatically. The white bar that you have on top is the start and end point of the loop. Think of that as your sequence or your scene in Machine.
Okay, yeah.
So this is a scene. We're working on one single scene. So move back into main. From top down, you can see the sequence, you can see the drum, and on the right-hand side, you can see the arrangement. What's your tempo for the sequence?
Currently, it's default 120.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And I don't know if you are a 120 kind of guy. Doesn't feel like it?
No, I like a little bit of a good dusty 96.
Oh, you're faster than I am right now. I'm trying to slow down and lower my tempo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I used to be stuck at like 92, 94. Now I'm trying to move down towards 85, 88.
Okay.
I'm getting older. I'm trying to slow down, you know?
Yeah, I hear you on that.
Something like that.
Of course, sometimes my sample will dictate that tempo. You know, if I'm starting with the drums from scratch, then yeah. Oftentimes I'll tap in what feels intrinsically motivated, you know, something that like I'm just sort of feeling, you know.
Yeah. Is that what we want to do? Or do we want to just get a drum loop going?
Typically when I make beats naturally, I'll usually start with the sample.
That's fine. That's cool. That's cool.
We can do that.
We can do that. Just to be transparent, I told you to not use whatever samples you have laying around because of copyright issues or whatever. I forced you to use some of my samples from my old Salt sample pack. That's free on my website, whatever.
Okay. I put those on my SD card already. So
yeah,
same thing. I go to load.
Go in there, find your sample, and don't load it. Just select it. So now if you select one of the pads and hit load, it's going to end up on that pad, and that's not what we want. Just hit load to pool. That's all you want to do.
Okay.
Now it's pretty much invisible. It's not assigned to a pad, but it is in here for sure. Now, what would you do in this scenario? You want to chop the sample, or you want to pitch it around first, or how do you think about it?
Now, if I was on the MK3, I would load the sample and I would just start chopping, and then afterwards I would like tune it. I would like, you know, pitch it.
Let's do just that, because that's also the way I work, and I think that's the easiest thing to do. Now, on the right-hand side of the controller, you have a physical button called Sample Edit.
Physical button that says Sample Edit. Got it. Okay.
So if you turn your big jog wheel here, you can change between the different files that you have loaded up.
Okay. Yeah.
So that would be your kick, snare, hi-hat, and the sample. So if you go to the sample there, make sure that's selected on the top of the screen. And you said you wanted to chop it, so let's hit chop. At the bottom of the screen, on the left-hand side, it says trim. So hit that one, and now it says chop instead. Okay. And how do you normally chop your samples? Do you do it manually, just hitting the different pads? Or do you let like any of the algorithms do it?
I always chop manually. I just sort of like vibe with it and make my chops as I go.
That's what this mode is. So if you hit the first pad, it's going to play the sample, and whenever you hit the next pad, it's going to create a chop point at that point.
All right.
Yeah, you can fine-tune the samples from the touchscreen itself. You can also use the Q-Link knobs on the right-hand side, the four knobs over here. What I use the touchscreen for here is zooming in so I can see it better. And then I adjust the point itself with the knobs. And also sometimes doing it on the touchscreen with the slice points, it's difficult to be accurate about it.
It can be inaccurate.
It can be inaccurate beats.
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah. So give that a try. Just turn the knobs and see what happens.
Okay, zoom in a bit and then use the knobs. Yeah, this is great. Now, to move, like, so I just made 6 quick chops there.
Yeah.
And on my screen, I'm just adjusting the 6th chop left and right using the top knob on the Q-Links.
Yeah.
But if I wanted to adjust 5, do I just tap 5 and then adjust from there?
Yeah, or you just hit the pad.
Or hit the pad. Makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. And the cool thing is that, I mean, the first knob makes a big adjustment. The next one makes a smaller adjustment.
When I was first messing with these Q-Link knobs, I didn't realize that button to the top right was switching through them, you know?
Oh, yeah. Switches through different modes.
Yeah, I thought all 4 were like, one is adjusting, you know, where where you are inside, like scrubbing through the track. And then I thought the other ones were expanding and contracting, because that's kind of how the knobs are on machine. When you're moving those knobs, one's expanding.
Right. And you have some different modes for that too, when it comes to like zooming in and out and just moving back and forth on it visually.
Yeah.
On the fourth page, the last knob zooms in and out, and it becomes a little bit more like machine that way. But in my book, it's easier to just pinch in and out like you're used to with an iPhone or whatever, and adjusting the start and end points. To me, it just feels nice to do it on the knobs itself. Think of this process right here as your rough chops, because you are able to adjust these chops in the next step too.
Okay.
To do like fine adjustments back and forth and making them overlap and whatever. Because now we have the sample and we are in the editing mode. We're creating different slice points, and then we want to convert that data into something new. And the new thing in this case is a track.
Mm-hmm.
A new track where we have the sample loaded up. If you go Shift, Convert, you're getting this pop-up screen.
Currently says convert to new drum track using slices, and the slice type is pad parameters.
Do it. And now what you have on the pads now are the same chops.
But I'm still inside of, if I go to the main page, they'll be there?
Yeah. For the drums, we created a track and we assigned pads to it. Now we took a sample and we assigned that to a new track. We made a new track out of it. At the bottom of your touchscreen, you can switch track plus or minus. And that's a really quick way to do it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Similar to machine when you're jumping from A to B to C, this is pretty much the same thing. At this point, you could start recording these chops on your timeline just as it is. But you could also change the pitch of a sample, add effects, and make finer adjustments to the sample itself. If you just hit the edit button next to the main button.
Edit button next to the main button. Got it. There
Down
it is.
here.
Okay. Yep.
And that one's different depending on what type of track you have. But in this case, it's a drum track with samples. Now you have basically a folder structure from left to right at the bottom of the screen. You are now on global, I believe. That's the global settings for this entire drum track. So if you want to pitch everything up and down, you do it on the global page.
Yeah.
Where this becomes fun is if we go to samples instead of global.
Okay.
There you have the chops again. It looks kind of similar to what it did when you chopped it, but here you have even more settings and options available to you. Trying different pitch modes, trying different chops, trying different start and end points, adding effects and all that. That's all done from here.
Okay.
So if you play your pads now, you have the same chops.
Yep.
And what's cool here that you don't get from machine is that you can see the key. To me, that's just a really handy thing. It's not always 100% correct, but most of the times, and you're using one of my samples. So if you want to go in here, you can zoom with your fingers, just pinching in and out.
So you can add more chop points in this screen?
That's why I said that the first step is basically the rough chops. Like get your basic chops done there and then do the fine tuning here. But you can add more points by just copying the pad over. That's also perfectly doable. Okay.
I mean, at that point, let's say if you had added a bunch of, like maybe you tuned it, you added a few effects to it, would you then just go back to sample, edit, add more chops, and it'd be able to move back and have all of those chops? No?
Not as far as I know. If you move back to sample edit, you have to convert it again, and then it becomes something new.
Okay.
Then it becomes a new track with the same stuff.
See, that's the part where, like, I guess I get some of the confusion will come in, right? Because, like, I'm so used to, like, on machine, if I were to add a bunch of effects to a sound and then make more chops in that same section, it's still going to be there. It's all.
But it also depends, are you putting the effect on the pad or on the group level?
I guess what I would want to do if I were to like affect the sample, I would want it to follow it at a group level, you know?
Yeah, that could be done.
Yeah?
Yeah, that could be done. And you can add effects on the right-hand side over here. Effects. And those are also being added to the single pad, not to the entire track.
Okay, so every time in this thing I'm adding an effect, it's only selecting that one pad that I have selected in the, or not group, but like on the 16 pad.
From this page, that's true.
Okay.
If you want to do it on the group level, that's not done from here. Now we are
Okay.
in the edit page for this single track, and we're focusing on the different pads.
Gotcha.
Let's just run through this edit page real quick because it's kind of cool. Global is global. That affects everything. You can set up your different mute groups, and in this case, I guess if you are on the global page, I guess poly is set to mono.
It is, yeah. By default, it seems to be.
Yeah, because that's normally what people want with samples. You don't want them to play simultaneously, but you could. Samples, we went through that real quick. That's your slice points and your pitch, and you can also reverse the sample from there. The next one is envelope. Envelope for the amp, which is the volume, of course. Envelope for the filter. You can add a filter sweep for the sample, and we're still talking about a single pad. And you have envelope pitch if you want to change the pitch through an envelope.
That's crazy. So there's okay, so you can do that in another location.
The way I think about it, this is the same location.
Yeah.
We are still in the edit page.
Yeah. I got you. Yeah.
The next one is LFO, and that's, it's an LFO. You can assign a bunch of different waveforms and make them do stuff to the sample. But we can always go back to this page. That's what's cool. Even if we have everything all sequenced out and whatever, we can still add an LFO to one of the pads after the fact if we want to, because it's all MIDI,
Yeah.
Next one up is modulation. You can do a lot of cool stuff from there. Maybe that's taken it a little bit too far, but there's a bunch of things to do in terms of modulation over time. Mm-hmm. Then we have the effect section here.
Yeah.
And this is going to come back every now and then because we have effects in different layers. So if you want to add a delay on one of the pads, it's all done from here.
Okay.
There's another page behind effect 2 that's called drum effects. And those are pretty much designed to fit drums because we are using this for samples, but it's intended to use for drums,
Yeah.
So that's the entire editing page. And that's an important one because, again, we can always go back and edit things even more if we want to.
Okay.
Yeah. So what do you think? What do we want to do at this point?
So I guess from here, it'd be cool to just kind of lay down some chops, and just usually I'll add the drums second. I usually do chop. I usually sample first and then. So that'd be kind of cool.
But that's what we could do just for demonstration purposes. First of all, time correction on or time correction off?
For me, I like to have time correction off. I like a little human error.
Yeah, you're speaking my language exactly. That's cool. Mm-hmm. We have a TC button on the right-hand side.
Oh, yeah, look at that. Okay. That doesn't stand for Tevin Campbell. Okay.
It stands for time correction. That's
gotcha.
Simple as that. Just turn it off. Hit the on button so it becomes black and turns off. Depending on how your MPC is set up from the get-go, you should still, I think the default setting is that you are getting 4 counts in before it starts. Let's try that out first of all. Overdub, play start.
Yep, getting a 4 count.
Getting the 4 count. And the metronome keeps playing after those 4.
Yeah. I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do with this though. So now normally if I was making something on machine, and I did that, and for example, I threw in this lower tone version before, and I wanted to adjust that, I would just go over to the mouse, click that thing, hit delete. I would keep it running in record mode, and then I would just add it in. How can I adjust that one note, like that one entry that I didn't like?
There's always an option to just let the entire sequence run and hold the erase button and hit the pad as it plays.
Yes. Okay. I forgot about that. See, this is the MPC stuff I've completely forgotten.
You have the main button and the edit button. That's where we have done the majority of our work.
Yeah.
Next to that, we have grid.
Oh, okay. So this is, I recognize this kind of thing.
Yeah, that's pretty much a piano roll.
Yeah.
But in this case, for drums.
Yep.
So this is one way of seeing your arrangement, your notes played on the actual sequence. Just to make sure that we have seen everything, go to main and hit arrangement on the display. Okay,
so we're seeing that grid view inside of arrangement inside of the main section. Gotcha.
Yeah, this is not big enough for me to kind of understand what I'm doing. But I can see that there are notes in there, you know?
Mm-hmm.
There are notes, but I can't really adjust them. I can't do much from here. That's why we go to the grid, because that's the grid for that single track. You can adjust the notes from here. You can move them as you would do with a mouse and keyboard in a DAW, basically. You know, I'm not saying that this is complicated. This is really cool. But if you end up becoming really like comfortable here, it's going to help you a lot.
You know what? I vaguely remember, because I had the MPC Live II for a while, and I made some beats on that, and I do remember some of this. I was using this quite a bit.
To me, this is super, super handy. And my first quick tip is, don't use the pen tool, don't use the eraser, because whatever you hit on the screen, things will just happen. And all of a sudden, you're just adding points whenever you think you're just zooming in and out, and you're adding notes, and everything just becomes unnecessarily complicated. So I would stick with the square, which is the marking tool. Marking tool. The selector tool and the magnifying glass. Okay. Now I got the words right. Just to get a feel for it, just grab one of the notes. Just create this little square selector thingy over a few of the notes. On the bottom here, you have different things you can do. In this case, I guess nudge is selected.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you turn the big knob as you watch the display itself, you're moving them on the timeline.
Oh yeah, look at that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Similar things could be done on the machine, but to me, this is just easier. Since you have the touchscreen, it's just...
That's really cool that you can do that. Okay.
To me, that helps a lot. And we have edit start, edit end. That's just the length of the notes themselves. Okay. We have transpose. So if this was like a piano or a plug-in track instead, we can transpose the notes up and down if we play something wrong.
Cool. Yeah.
I am really impatient with stuff myself, so I try to avoid this as much as possible and just taking my entire sequence out and playing it again until it becomes right, because that's more fun for me. But the editing possibilities here are one of the benefits with the MPCs in my book. Automation, the last one. By default, it's set to velocity. So if this was a drum track and you wanted to adjust the velocity of the hi-hats or whatever, that could be done from here. Just select automation and turn the knob, and it affects the velocity.
Okay.
It sounds like you're kind of happy with whatever you have on the sequence, so we don't need to fiddle around too much, but it's always an option. So at this point, go back to the main page. From this point, this is just a rinse and repeat kind of situation. Right. In this case, we did it with the sample, and now you can just go back to another track, do the drums, and then you have drums and samples. Mm-hmm. And we haven't even touched on any of the other stuff here with plugins and instruments and whatever, but this is just the basics of sampling, I guess. If I wasn't here, what would be your next step?
From here, assuming I have my sample all chopped up the way I want it, I've laid it out, I would go straight to the drums.
You would?
Yeah.
Because in that case, it's just a matter of down at the bottom of the screen again, go track minus, and you are back to your drums.
Yeah.
Let's just put some drums on the sample just to make sure that we have more than one track running. And just to remind you, if you wanted to, you could jump from this one straight into the grid again, and it's not going to be your samples, it's going to be your drums.
Oh, okay. Yeah, look at that. Gotcha.
Yeah, I think that's kind of handy.
It is. Yeah, I do like that. I'm not like super in love with the way the hi-hats were. So like if I were to just want to select just the hi-hats themselves.
There is a way to quickly grab those. Hit the pad.
Yep. It's not highlighting them when I click it, but it is. I lied. As I zoomed in, I realized when I zoomed in, it is selected. So they are all highlighted. Yeah.
They are. They become white instead of red. So they are highlighted. Yeah.
Cool. So I can just nudge them. I can mess around with that. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I do a lot. I move my entire hi-hat track, all of them, just a little bit to get a feeling. But you can also hold shift and select more than one. So if you have like 2 tracks of hi-hats that you need to switch a little bit.
Oh, and you could also in grid view, once they're highlighted, you could hold shift and then just delete them.
That's also, believe me or not, that's also new in MPC 3.
Okay.
Before you had
Okay.
to cut them. Now you can actually delete them.
Okay. That is cool because, and it doesn't delete the track. It just deletes what you have in the grid for that track.
Yeah.
Okay. See, because to me, doing it this way inside of grid view is like, I don't know, mentally it's easier than holding. I know holding down erase and touching the pad at the section that you want to erase, especially when you wanted to do like a dropout on like the MPC 2000 XL or something. You just want to drop the drums before going into a sequence. Was the way that I would do it after creating a song mode, you know? But to me now, after working on the MK3 for so long, it's just, this is more intuitive than holding erase and the pad at the moment I want to erase something. But
yeah, I mean, if you want to take the entire thing out, this is just way easier.
In the same space, like if I wanted to select just a set of hi-hats or whatever it is, I could do the same thing with the selection tool inside a grid, hit shift and hit delete, and it takes it away, right?
Yeah.
Just that section? Okay.
The benefit of being able to see the grid view like this is just massive, right?
Yeah, for sure. I wonder about song mode and if that's where I'm really going to, because once I actually, speaking of arranging, like really arranging these different sequences into a song, I wonder if that's like another video or something. This is already going to be tough for you to edit, but.
For song mode, you're talking to the wrong guy. 100%.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's why I'm so excited about them and the third version. The arranger just makes so much more sense to me.
Arranger to kind of replace the song mode, right? Like as far as this ecosystem now?
It doesn't have to, but it could.
For me, with the MK3, forever, I've been, I just use their, I think it's called an arranger. They're called an arranger? I don't know what they call theirs. I absolutely love it. It's so intuitive to me. I just kind of go in and move things around and, select things, delete, make little adjustments. And then I'll almost always end up adding another track right in there and playing something over the whole thing to add all kinds of variation. And is that possible here?
100%.
Okay.
Not in the song mode. Maybe in the song mode. I don't know. I'm not an expert on song mode. I've never been a fan. In the arranger mode, 100%. So let's jump into that real quick.
Okay.
Just so you know that you've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
There will probably be different ways to do this in the future in terms of shortcuts and whatever. Mm-hmm. Let's just do it the super manual way because that's always going to work. Let's again hold menu and go to pad 14.
All right.
Here you can see the two different tracks on the entire thing, and it's 4 bars long. Correct?
Yes.
Correct. So now we want to add another, I'm just making it up as I go, another 4-bar pattern after this. Hit the edit button on the touchscreen. Yeah. And here you have a bunch of different things to do for your arranger. And keep in mind, in terms of the old MPC software, we're still working on sequence 1. We haven't left sequence 1. We're not going to leave sequence 1 either. In this case, I would just go double length, the red one on the screen.
Gotcha.
Double length, and then pinch out to zoom out on the screen.
Yep, I'm at 8 bars. Gotcha.
8 bars, and it's 4 bars times 2. So it's the same stuff. Copy it over. Mm-hmm. What's cool here is that those two aren't connected in any way, shape, or form at all. Those two are copies of each other.
Okay.
So at the top of the screen, you have the white selector tool that gives you the range, the loop range. So I would take the left point, the start point, and move that to number 5, I guess. So if that's all we're doing, we could go back to main, and we're still on sequence 1. We still have the 2 different tracks, but now we're working on a different part of the music.
So this loop range at the top inside of the arranger is more important than just a loop range. It's really the affected range that you're working within?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the way I think about it is basically now we switched from, it's not sequence, but in my mind it is, we switched from sequence 1 or part 1 to part 2. Because I'm relying on this arranger workflow myself. I'm a big fan, I like it a lot, and I'm going to use it. And this way, we can now erase everything. if we just hit the erase button from here, it's scary because it says that it's deleting the drums in sequence 1. We can just hit do it because it's still going to stay for the first part in the arranger mode. And now the MPC basically thinks that I only have 4 bars, which is the last 4 bars. The first 4 bars are all said and done. That's what they are.
Just throwing this in there,
yeah.
I feel like if they, inside of arranger mode, if they had from the grid mode, the selection tool to in arranger mode, just select portions within the range of whatever's in arranger,
yeah,
that would be, to me, like game changing, because then you could just, I just want to drop the drums right here and I don't have to use the whole selection tool at the top.
Yeah, but it's also scary because you can mess up a lot of stuff. And it also becomes really tiny. You have to zoom in a lot and do whatever. If we go back to the editing page and start editing the sample and start editing the drum sounds or whatever, it's going to follow here too, because it's the same pads, it's the same track, but the information on the sequence is unique. And at this point, just as you said, if you wanted to just add another track and like rap or sing or scratch or just play a synth or whatever, you can. It's just a matter of adding a new track, and you can actually record straight into this from the arranger mode itself. Okay. And one of the benefits with this entire system is that now you can think about your 4 different bars, 4 bars here and 4 bars here. If you want a transition effect or something that goes between them, you can imagine how easy that is. It's just a matter of opening up a new audio track and putting a sample in there.
Yeah.
Because it's not technically looping.
It's operating like a regular recording software, it's going straight in.
Yeah. Yeah. And to me, that's also kind of huge. Say that I have this, 100 bar track and I want to record some scratch over it. I don't even have to think about where the loop points or anything are. Now it's just a linear workflow. It's just a linear piece of music. Yeah. So what's the next thing to go through here?
So like because stem is one of the main reasons I picked this thing up, is stemming the tracks. And I watched the tutorials and was still, and it can't just be me, because I saw a lot of people on Reddit boards completely confused as well. When you're going to stem a sample and you go into the sample edit, right?
If you go sample edit, then you have process on the right-hand side. And there you can silence, you can extract, you can normalize, you can reverse, all types of things with the actual file.
Yeah, and then when you scroll all the way over, it pulls up the create stems.
Yeah.
I found this to be, like, just chatting here with you, I found it to be confusing because I guess I don't fully, even when I watch them go through it, like in the videos, I'm like, I don't get it, because they're saying, I saw one video where the guy chopped the sample first, and then with the sample chopped, created stems. And then I don't fully understand where those went. Like when I was doing it, I'm like, where are these things going?
Yeah, I can tell you. If you go edit, not sample edit, just edit. And samples, page 2. Underneath the waveform itself, you have layer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
That's where they're going?
Yeah.
Okay, I never looked there.
No, of course not. Of course not. You don't. But that's where they end up. And you can control it if you hit the samples button again. There you have layer 1 to 4 right there. And you can change the different volumes of the different things. And this is where the stems are. So the first one will be the vocal, the second one will be the bass and the drums and whatever. So it basically ends up, it's the same sample, it's chopped up, and then it extracts stems and puts it on different layers. And
then if you want to like use them, you go to you would like, or not main, like where would you find, like once you have them?
No. If you did all this and you have the stems here, you are using them, because whenever you hit a pad, you're basically triggering all the different stems at once.
Right, and then you turn down the parts you don't want.
Yeah.
And then when I haven't used it properly yet, so if let's say I had one in there and I turned off the vocals and then I hit record, the fact that I turned that Q-Link knob for the vocals all the way off is going to follow it everywhere?
Yep.
Okay.
Because it's not audio. You're recording MIDI, and the MIDI data corresponds to the pad, and the pad has all the information on it, but it's only letting through everything but the vocal or whatever you would choose. So that's just a parameter that's going to follow along. Everything we're talking about now is not the way I use stems myself whenever I've tried it.
Okay.
I don't do it like that. I extract stems from a sample into 4 different audio files, 4 different samples.
Okay.
So I use them individually.
I wondered about that, if that would be a better way of doing it. Because then you have...
Generally, it's not a better way to do it.
Okay.
It's just my preferred way.
One of the things, I kind of know what I'm doing on the MK3 as far as effects go, as far as especially like how I like to, because I do it all in the machine, my compression and the limiter, and I really like it. Like I kind of have like the way I like to do my compression. I don't know if it's the right way or the wrong way, but the way
that
I do
doesn't matter.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Huh.
And it gives me a sound that makes me happy. I feel like one of the main things that would make me love this thing, and I got close to it on the MPC Live II, was just like, and I know this gets into sort of like opinion, right? It's subjective, but like ways to add some compression to it, like, you know, at the end to really like hamburger the thing together in a way that sounds good. That's probably less of a tutorial thing, but
are we talking about quote unquote mastering, like on the master bus, or are we talking about adding compression to a kick drum?
Yeah, on the master bus, yes.
In the main page, you basically have your sequence and all the stuff that we have been talking about. And there's also something that's a little bit hidden if you don't know what you're looking for. Let me try to explain this in a way that makes sense. On the left-hand side, we're just talking about the display here. On the left-hand side, we have a yellow folder, and then a little bit to the right, we have sequence 1, right? In between those two, we have 2 different lines. Hit one of them.
Oh.
Yeah. That expands the tracks, so to speak.
Okay.
So the tracks on the mixer is what this is. Comparable to a DAW, for instance. So the left one is the track that you are on right now and the different parameters for that one. And the next one to that is output 1 and 2, I guess. So that's the master output. So from here, you can see, let's focus on the one in the middle right now. The right one out of these 2. That says output 1/2. There you have level, then you have FX, then you have sends, and then you have IO.
Yeah.
Right? So let's go FX and hit one of the plus signs. There's the different effects.
Gotcha. There's your dynamics.
Yep, that's the dynamics, and there's a compressor.
Okay.
Or a few of them, actually.
Yeah, and that was one of the things too, the compressor options that they have in MPC comparatively to like MK3. I don't remember if MK3 or I should say machine has like so many options. I think they have compressor, you know, like that's it.
Yeah. I mean, a compressor can be super daunting and super intimidating and super complicated, or also just a one knob kind of thing. And that's what Native Instruments is doing more. And I'm not saying one is better than the other, but if you want to learn what a compressor actually does, let's try another thing first. There's something called maximizer too. You know about that?
Yeah. The air maximizer?
Air maximizer. Yeah, exactly.
Now, does Jordan know that they're using the term air? Does he need to be notified?
Who knows? But, I mean, that's just one thing. If you look at the interface, you don't have a lot of stuff to work with. You have a threshold and you have a ceiling and a look ahead in milliseconds. This will definitely boost your signal. And if you put this, as we have done in this case, on the master bus, it's going to make a difference to everything.
And I can mess with this, of course, later on. Like, but when it comes to like you've used the compressor, I'm sure, on machine in the past, like the one they put in there by default. What would you say is the closest? Is it this to what they have on the machine, or is there a different one?
No, but that depends on what you want to do with the compressor. If we're just talking about making a sausage out of things, I think this is an option. If you want an actual compressor, there's a lot of options.
There is. I think I used the air compressor when I was like on the Live II quite a bit.
learning and understanding all the ins and outs of a compressor is, that's a full-time job in itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. I started out like with like engineering stuff, like on hardware, compressors, like the Avalon and things like, so when I'm diving into these things, it's a little bit weird because I'm dealing with like these interfaces, and like some of them I don't recognize. So especially on MPC, I'm like, all right, so what is this? Like, what is this compression?
To me, that's kind of what's cool about these kinds of Grove boxes. You're not getting the best version of anything, but you're getting a specific version that's going to be consistent for what it is. Just pick a compressor and learn it as much as possible. And I would suggest, just from my personal opinion, the air compressor is maybe not the best sounding one, but in terms of graphical representation and what it gives you, I think this one is the strongest one for me. But here you have a clear visual representation of the gain reduction.
Yeah.
So you can see how much it actually works in real time.
Yeah.
Because whenever you're down to like a lot of decibels, you know that you're doing something wrong.
Right. Something's up.
Yeah. That just gives you a little bit of an indication. And, you also have a bunch of presets and stuff for the compressors.
Yeah.
And, of course, they're not going to be reliable because it all depends on the incoming signal, all that stuff. But it's a place to start.
And again, this, of course, gets into preferences of sound, like how you like it to sound. But even with this, how would you add, because I have a way of doing it very simply on the machine, but some side chaining with this. There's a duck. There's the mother ducker right in here that they have going. And I think, isn't that the way you...
Yeah, that one has to be set up a little bit. You have to assign it to the input and to the destination.
Yeah.
So it's not just a one-stop thing. It's not just add a mother ducker and it ducks. You have to tell mother ducker where to duck from. So that's why you have two. You have the mother ducker and the mother ducker input. The normal use case, I'm not sure, but I'm just guessing, is that you want the sample or the baseline to duck for the kick drum.
Yeah.
So then you want the mother ducker input on the kick drum and the mother ducker effect on the baseline or the sample.
See, this is where I would get stuck.
Yeah, this is complicated.
I've got it added to the sample. I got mother ducker on there. Piece of cake, you add it right there in the
doesn't
effects.
do anything.
Right. And if I wanted to add it to the drum track, I wouldn't want to add it to the drum track overall. I want to add it just kick inside the drum track. But on this, I would need to add it to that other track.
Yeah, but no. You don't want to add it to the track. You want to add it to the pad.
To the pad. Oh, okay. Yes. To the pad.
You don't want all the drums. Go to Edit. Go to Samples.
Yep.
Pick your sample, whatever one you want.
Yeah, the kick drum.
Yeah. And then on the right-hand side, effects.
Well, this has been great. I have learned quite a bit, and I feel like you've pulled me back from the ledge a little bit. I was getting ready to jump off. So.
Don't jump off. Don't.
I'm gonna jump. Don't jump.
No, never. You have gotten a little bit more comfortable with some of the things, I hope.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw in a sample, and some drums and mess around a bit and see what I can make, after this session. Just knowing the way around a bit inside of this new software interface and sort of like pulling apart the wires that are connected to the machine is a bit of a task. And so this helped a lot with that, like conceptualizing this workflow.
So this has been a session for at least a few hours at this point. And I'm going to edit this down into a video that you're watching right now, I guess. And I hope you learned something out of it, as well as I hope that Al learned something out of it.
100%. Absolutely.
I think that's something.
I feel like I'm a good general user that, I'm sure people have these issues, so.
Everyone needs to spend a little bit of time to get comfortable with everything, of course. Yeah. But as a new user, this rundown should teach you something, I hope. This has been a video for my channel, but also a meeting in real life, just to actually see if you can learn something. I think that's that's a cool thing. Maybe we'll do it again. Maybe I'll do it with someone else. Maybe someone will come here and teach me something. Who knows what the future will bring? I don't.
Thanks for doing this with me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks a lot for being here. Thanks a lot for allowing me to cut this into a video, and it's cool. Thanks a lot. And again, as he mentioned in the beginning here, check out the Beatcast. Check out you on social media. I don't think you mentioned that.
Yeah, mine's at ILL_Al_. So we've got 2 underscores to deal with.
Why not?
But just search ILL, you'll find it. And yeah, check out the Beatcast, at the Beatcast on everything.
Super. So, since this is one of my YouTube videos, ha det gott.
Accurate beats.